I've always been angry. Put him up there. How becoming homeless made us millionaires. Multi-millionaires now. Fun times, fun times. Just for accuracy's sake. So, for those of you that don't know, part of our story is that, you know my name, now you know my story, is that we made ourselves homeless back in October of 2022, indefinitely. Like, we didn't know how long it was going to go for. And as part of that, so we were getting away from, at the time we were living with my wife's parents at their place because we had built a house and we were renting that out. And so we realized it was the wrong environment for us and we decided to move out because of, it was just a few things which I'll get into later, but the main reason was because we were around the wrong people. Specifically, not specifically, but there's a lot of that negative chatter or those voices that say, those people saying, you can't do this, you're not going to be able to make it, you're wasting your life, you're doing things the wrong way. So essentially what we did by doing that was we cut all of those people out of our environment and we changed our reality by doing that, what we were around. And then as a result, 10 days later, 10 days of just like hardcore searching for a place. We found a place, and then 2 months after that, we became millionaires. And that's like cash flow millionaires, not just asset kind of things. And obviously we include assets in there. Actually at that time, that was like net millionaires. So assets and cash flow minus debt, that kind of thing. Anyway, that's a whole fun thing. So this got triggered by a conversation we were overhearing yesterday, or I just got reminded of this again, because it's so like even in everyday life you can see how these things pop up and how they have an effect on people. We were out for date day, and we were sitting at a sushi restaurant, and there was a mum and a daughter, and they were sitting there. And the mum was just going, they were speaking Chinese, so I didn't understand. But I could feel it. I could feel what was going on. And like the energy instantly when they sat down and started talking was like, ooh, came right down. And Yana, obviously speaking Chinese, understood what they were saying. And it was the mum just talking a lot about how the grades, like just talking non-stop about school. And the schoolgirl's just sitting there like the whole time, which is a stitch up. And I understand it comes from a place of love. That's the biggest thing that you got to understand. Just because something comes from a place of love, that's all well and good. You don't have to hate parents or people that want the best for you, but that doesn't mean that you have to tolerate them saying the wrong things to you. So if they're saying things that are negative and aren't actually going to help you get to where you want to go, that's okay. Like, you don't have to bear that burden of them doing it from a place of love. You have to do what you have to do, and that's the right thing, ultimately. So these two were talking, and bro, the energy was just, it just sunk right down. Yana, I was like, it was like she was hardly there as well, even for her. Because normally we're chatting, we're having fun, and like I can feel that energy. But I was like, she just dipped, basically. Like, she'd mentally checked out. And the reason wasn't because she was like, mad, I don't want to talk to anyone. It was because she was trying to focus really hard on zoning that out. Because obviously when you can hear it and you understand what's going on and that energy's in the room, you're just going to keep, like, you have to actively tune it out. And it takes a lot more energy than people realize. And I think that the contrast between someone who doesn't speak Chinese and someone who does speak Chinese was huge. Like, it really illustrates the point, because I didn't know what was going on. I knew sort of from the energy, and I was like, man, that lady's talking a lot, and that girl does not look impressed. And you know, she was respectfully taking what the mother was saying, or we're assuming the mother. But it does a number on you if you can understand what's going on. And Yana, evidently, could. That's the kind of environment we were on when we first decided to go homeless in October of 2022. Because those were the voices we were hearing. They were voices that we had to actively tune out, and you don't realize how much of an effect that has on you, because essentially the night that we left so we left at like the butt crack of midnight, as I like to say, and we had nowhere to go. So we just went, took my brother-in-law now, well, he was my brother-in-law then, with us as well. He was working at KFC, so we were just like, he said that he wanted to move out with us when we moved out at the end of the year, and he was like, yeah, I'll come with you. We called him, was like, can we pack your bag or something? Yep, cool. Picked them up from KFC, and we just went. So we had our 2 little dogs, Timmy and Zeke, and we just left. The big thing that did, like why that made such a difference, going homeless and getting out of that environment of negativity, and basically I think the final straw for myself, there are a few things, but overall that negative, it was negative, but some of the people in the house were like neutral, like, yeah, we support, like, we want the best for you, but even that, I'm like, you got to strip out neutral people as well. You just got to get around the ambitious people who are going the same way that you want to go and have the same shared values, because you don't need a bunch of cheerleaders around you. If you have cheerleaders going like, oh, yeah, you can do it, wow, that's great, and they don't understand what's actually going on, even if they're great mates, you got to cut them out to a degree. Obviously, you're not going to be like, I'm never talking to you again, but just say you don't want to talk to them on a regular basis. Otherwise, it's really draining for you, and you don't realize just how much. So some of the stuff that was being said was stuff like, you can't make it, these numbers that you're giving us aren't real, like there's no way you can do it. And the last thing was, I can't wait for you to fail so I can laugh behind your back. And that was it. I was just like, we'll see, like you'll see. And so we left, and obviously we're all doing really well now, but the fact is, if that's your reality and you tolerate it, because it gets to a point where you will get, obviously, circumstance, when you are born, you don't really get to decide that stuff, but when you get to an age that you can decide, then the onus is on you to do something about it. You can actually go, oh, you know what, this is not a good environment for me, so I'm going to do this, and I'm going to leave, I'm going to make things happen. Yeah, and my guy says, much love, brother, I've been through this same life issues before. Much love from NZ. Much love to you too, man. I hope you're doing much better now, and I know that if you got that right mindset, you'll be killing it, bro. You'll be killing it. So yeah, it's a big situation to go through, and it's one of those odd things where it's not like homelessness was forced upon us or cast upon us. We chose it. We chose it because we were like, this is the right thing, and I think that's what makes the story really unique, because some people think, oh, it's only if you're thrown into it and you're living in a cardboard box for years on end, that's the only kind of like story that's worthwhile telling. I'm like, nah, there's heaps of stuff in between, and like there are plenty of people that come up perfectly middle class, so to speak, and like I think that we grew up pretty rich in the sense that there wasn't too much money, like there was a good amount of money, but it wasn't like we were dirt poor, living in poverty. Like I was very well provided for as a kid growing up. So it was my wife. We were given fantastic opportunities, but there are these stories where it's like, you don't have to come from absolutely nothing. You can come from part way, but just decide that you want to be your best and want more for your life and capitalize on the opportunities that our parents have provided for us by working so hard to put us in this situation. You don't just want to keep going. If you know that you can make things better, you don't just want to keep the current situation rolling, and there comes a point where you have to do that, and you have to essentially die to your parents, which is something I've talked to a fair few guys about. When if they don't understand, if they understand and they're on board, fantastic, you don't have to die to them in that sense, but they tend to come around anyway. Like my wife, relationship with her parents now, bueno. My relationship with my parents, bueno. It's always been quite good, so I'm very blessed in that sense. But the fact is, when people are saying stuff like that to you, you hear those little whispers in your ear. It's so draining to be around that and have to tune it out. When you're around that, that's your reality. You have to fight against that just to get to a neutral reality of like, oh yeah, this is possible, because those little things, like, they'll feed into self-doubt that you already have. And you're tolerating, allowing that into those voices to come in when you're hearing stuff like, nah, I don't think you can do it. Nah, is it really going to work though? Is it possible? Because it seems impossible for them. So their reality is that this thing is impossible. This way that you're going to be successful can't be done. So then you're going to be like, oh, is it possible? You have to fight against that at best to get to neutral. And it's almost impossible to get to a thriving mindset, or that mindset where you're like, yes, we're on board, we can do this. So that's why you got to fight and get out of that. And the simple fact is, you can just strip away all of that. You can be like, I'm moving out, I'm getting away from these people, I'm just cutting you out of my life, I'm not talking to these people anymore. Habiba is not one of those people. Habiba is one of my G's. So yeah, anyway, I just yelled right into the mic. But even when it comes to neutral people, I've kind of done illustrations in little presentations that I made before. But so say you're from negative to neutral. That takes, you have to fight into that, and it's almost impossible to get into thriving. So thriving is where you want to be. From neutral, if you're just there, you have to fight to get into thriving, because it's not your reality. If you're around people who are like, oh yeah, like that's great for you. I don't really get it, but yeah, oh, are you sure about this? What about this? That's cool. And like very sparingly would I catch up with those kind of people. Like that's like once every 6 months, once every year, once every 2 years you'd see people like that. Because it's like they're friends and it's great, but it's like it's taking time, effort and energy away from you doing what you need to get done, which is not what you want. Obviously you want to be around people who get it and are actually on board and helping you, like you're all working together to achieve this shared goal. Is the microphone plugged in? To my phone, yes, not to the iPhone. So my setup right now is, I can't really show you, but right now, Xavier, this microphone is connected to my computer, and I'm recording the audio with my phone filming up there, because I upload these to YouTube as well. And I'm doing the live itself from my iPad, or my wife's iPad. My wife, our iPad. So that's why the audio sounds just like a normal iPad, but the mic is plugged into my computer. So yes, good question. But yeah, basically, if you're in that reality where it's just neutral, you have to fight to get into thriving. And like it's better than coming from a negative environment, but it's not as good as if you were to strip even the neutral people out, catch up with them sparingly, and only get around people who share that vision. And that's what my wife and I were doing by getting choosing to become homeless. You strip out the negative, and then it becomes a bit more like, even then we surpassed the neutral and went straight to what do you call it? Straight to just positive, like thriving. It was just us there, just us getting among it and doing our thing. On the grind, nice, Xavier, is what Xavier says. How long have you been training MMA? How long have you been training MMA? Like pure MMA, probably only a year, but mixing the martial arts for like 7 years or so. But that was like, I did Taekwondo. I had done Taekwondo. So I've been training for 21 years in total. I did Taekwondo for the first 14 years. Towards the end of that 14 years, I started Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu. Jiu-Jitsu's been on and off for the last 7 years, so I probably have cumulatively like 6 months experience, so not much. Muay Thai was more like what I went hard with. So I've done that for 7 years. So I've kind of like had them side by side, but I've only really integrated them as MMA in the last year or two. Mainly the last year since I got here, because I started going to an MMA specific gym, and so we got to get that sparring in, and I realized like just how different MMA sparring was when you can really add the threat of the takedown and the walls, and you have to take that all into account. That's so yeah. But yeah, nice question. Very nice. Keep them coming. You can ask me anything on these as well. Even though I have a topic I'll normally come back to and keep talking about. Ask away. I'm all for it. I love to chat. As you can see, I think I've chatted non-stop for like 14 minutes now. So, we basically bypassed the neutral stage and we went straight to the thriving stage, because it was just us. We had a shared vision to start up this company one of the things was starting up a company and doing our thing by way of like, yeah, we know we can do this, our entrepreneurship and building our businesses that way. And so we just stripped out all the negative voices, and it was just us. And then obviously it was stressful trying to get the house itself, because we applied to like over 100 places. There were a lot of like, I obviously had to lead us through that situation, and sometimes it was like, oh, should we just sleep in a tent? And I'd be like, no, we're not doing that. We can, but we're not going to sleep in a tent for the next year. I'm going to find us a place and make it happen. And there's a lot to be said about belief in that circumstance. I think this is a good point to quickly chat about this, but the idea of belief will change your world, because a lot of the time people will believe something that doesn't serve them and isn't even necessarily reality. They just believe it. And a big thing here is something I was talking to my mum asked me about recently. She was like, is the housing market worse in Queensland, this is whilst I was over in Perth, than it is in Perth? Is it worse over there where you guys are at? I was like, I don't think it's bad anywhere. It's fine. It's good because it's only the best people that are getting through. And I understand, I'm not trying to be unempathetic to people's circumstances, but the best people that have skills will get the places. We'll get these things, we'll get the opportunities. And it's like everyone says with entrepreneurship, oh, you got lucky, you lucked out. But luck is just when opportunity meets preparation. And nowadays, I think what we're being exposed to is the fact that the standard is higher. The standard for getting a house is higher because there are more people wanting to do it. The standard for entrepreneurship, especially online, is higher because people are used to all of these things and they have higher expectations. The standard for content even is higher. And it's like the people that are the best at making content are the ones that will prevail over that. And that's not, I think that's something that gives people hope because it's like, oh, I can just develop the skills and then I'm bulletproof. I can do anything that I want basically. If you pair the right skills with the right beliefs, then you're unstoppable. But because a lot of the rest of everyone is just not doing they don't have the skills and they refuse to adopt the beliefs because it serves them to stay the same. And I understand, I'm not condemning anyone for that. I'm just like, hey, these are the facts. This is what happens, this is what works. And we have a mountain of evidence just from our own story. My wife and I, let alone looking at other people's stories. You're like, oh, this is like when you just look at it and observe, you're just like, oh, this is what everyone's done. This is what all the successful people have done. This is the independent factor. So, yeah, that's one of the biggest things. Belief will change your world, and it's the same thing with the homeless side of things. So yes, the market, but also even with our business, it's like we believe this is possible. It does not serve us to accept a different reality. When people are like, oh, the market's bad, it's like, no, not for us. It isn't. I refuse for that to be the case because it's not. Because I know that I can make it if I choose to make it. Because it's not like, oh, I'm going to do this and God's going to back me up. Not like that when people misquote Philippians 4:13. It's like, I can go, that's a whole nother thing. But I can do this because I know it. And it's a big thing. Like, I, a lot of the time, pray for wisdom and for guidance from God. That's why we even did the homeless thing in the first place. And we're like, God, please, God, show us the right thing in the right time, like your way. And when he instills that in you, it's like you just know these things and you're like, okay, I just have to choose it and accept it. Okay, got a couple questions here, or one question. How do you learn and mentally train to be able to create good shot selection and positioning? Muay Thai I've started. Okay, that is a great question. So Xavier, what I would say is the same thing with what I'm talking about here. It is a mindset thing. Like you said, mentally training for that. You believe that it's possible, first of all, and then you train accordingly. So really embracing that it's possible is huge. So how do you learn and mentally train? Create God's good shot selection. So I would do, and positioning, obviously you have to mentally do it at first, and like consciously do it rather. And what it comes down to is, I call it making reads, is probably the easiest way that I'd summarize it, the simplest way that I'd summarize it. But you have to look for it. So when you're sparring, you have to just actively do it. And the only way I think to get that is by thinking about it when you're not sparring. You can do a bit of visualization, take yourself through the scenarios, watch some fight breakdowns, go it. But you've got to get in there and spar. So we're talking about skill acquisition now, which really carries over to what we're talking about by way of entrepreneurship and being able to get places and martial arts. Skill acquisition, deliberate or intentional skill acquisition is going to be what helps you get there. And you have to understand there are different stages to it. And be okay with going through these stages. So the first stage is unconscious incompetence. So you don't know what you don't know. But it sounds like you're at that stage now, if you're asking about this, is you have conscious incompetence. So you're like, okay, I'm aware there are things that I don't know and things that I want to learn. Now I've got to actively do these things. So you get to that stage, and then you get to a stage after that where you've got conscious competence. Oh, I can do the things, but I have to think about them. Then you get to one of the higher stages, which is unconscious competence, where it's just second nature, essentially, is what I call it. You go in and you're just like, oh, I'm just doing these things. My body's just reacting and doing those things. That's how skill acquisition, like for anything, that's how skill acquisition works. That's a really simple breakdown, and you just go through those stages. Now, what that looks like for sparring specifically is when you get to the conscious incompetence, or like you'll start and you'll not really realize what's going on, but then you start asking great questions like that, Xavier. And then you'll start to be able to look for opportunities. You listen to breakdowns, you ask people questions, your coach shows you things, and you have to consciously tell yourself to do it in sparring. You're going to see the opportunities, but you're not really at first going to be able to do anything about it. You'll be like, oh, there's an opening. Bah! I got hit in the face. Oh, okay, that sucked. There it is. But you just get smacked over and over again. But you understand the process by which you're doing it is you are making these reads, and then you are going to start being able to do the things. So you consciously, okay, I see this coming, here it comes, I'm going to do this now, and then you do it, and it works. And it's like 50-50 shot, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but you persist, you keep going, you keep trying to develop those skills, and then eventually your body just starts doing it, naturally flowing. Now, something that can really help with that in sparring is obviously consciously developing that is a big thing, but sometimes inspiring partners can go a bit hard, so you can ask people to slow down to a degree and like don't actually hit you, so you're not flinching, and then you can actually watch. That's one of the biggest things. Like Israel Adesanya says, you can train the eyes to see these opportunities, and that's the biggest thing. This is a concept that carries over to not just martial arts, but also business, life in general. It's like perception of opportunities. You can train your perception. So if you're looking for something, you can see it much more easily, and over time you can see it just like that and know what to do. So when you see a punch coming or a certain strike coming from a certain angle, then you can go, okay, sweet, I'm going to do this, and your body will just react and do it. Same thing with entrepreneurship and business skills. So you can ask people to slow down a bit so that you're not like flinching, because if you're doing this, turning away or flinching, not going to be great. I was thinking about this morning actually, but eventually it will come to a point where you kind of have to just force yourself to keep your eyes open. I always recommend eyes on your partner's chest area or base of the neck, because then you can really see what's going on with your peripheral. And then you just have to like bite down on your mouthpiece and force your eyes to stay open so you can see. Don't just, and this is where a lot of people make a mistake, they just cover up and think, yeah, that's good enough. But if you can't see and you're not watching what's going on, you're not going to be able to do anything about it now, but especially not later. So you have to develop the skills and be willing to look like a bit of an idiot. You're going to get hit by stupid stuff. I've got heaps of footage of me when I was learning this, just being like, I'm just standing there. Like, it's like a naked rear cross will be thrown from like a mile away, and I just don't do anything about it. I'm like, what's going on? But it's because you're trying to perceive these things, and eventually you can develop it. All right, Xavier, I've trained for a few months, got decent on the pads, in good form, just struggle a little with how I can get better at sparring. So the best way to get better at sparring is spar more. So I'm talking like, don't even just, if you can, obviously every gym's different, but my philosophy and how I coach a lot of my guys is, if you want to get good at sparring, you spar and you think about sparring. So like, I've gotten to a point where I was only sparring once a week, and now I spar a bit more because I enjoy it. But dude, if you want to get good at sparring, you understand that sparring is a skill, and skills are what we call like neurological, and they, like, the best way to develop skills is frequency, like high frequency. So training every day. So if you want to get good at something, you'll do it every day, and you'll do it a lot. So you can do what I call front loading skills, and this goes for entrepreneurship, like business skills and life skills as well. You can front load and learn a lot of these things. So training for a few months, you can front load the skills. So get in there, dude. If you can spar every day or like six days a week, fantastic. If you can't, 3 or 4 days a week is fantastic. But something I really like to do is I don't go to classes where they do a lot of conditioning before sparring. Because yeah, that's all well and good for doing that, but I want to get in there and spar. So I'll ask my mates to come in, and if the coach is okay with it, if the gym allows you to do it, hey, you want to come in and just do a sparring session? And they just come in and we'll just spar. We'll spar, have a spar, like for an hour. You just spar, do rounds on rounds, and you're just intentional about the development. Appreciate the knowledge, TY. All gravy, Xavier. And I see your question, Pollywood Production. How do you make your first meal? I'll get into that in just a second. So yeah, front load the skills. Like really just get in there. Especially if you're a few months in, that's fantastic that you're great on the pads and everything. But there comes a point where, honestly, in my opinion, and I know this isn't the traditional way, more pad work is just useless. It's just useless volume. Like, even if you're like, oh, but technique and learning power, I'm like, you express technique differently on the pads than you will in sparring, because you might see an opportunity and you might be, boom, wicked jab on the pads, and then you're like, oh, when you're sparring, because you freak out, because it's different on that. So it comes to a point where if you want to get good at sparring, this is an intentional thing, and this feeds into how do we make the first meal as well. Skill acquisition, and if you want to get good at something, you do that thing. You don't do things that are sort of close to it or that maybe will carry over. You do the things that are going to carry over. So I would say it's honestly just sparring. watch your sparring footage back is really useful. That's something I do because then it keeps it objective. If you're just doing it, you're like, oh, I think I did this. But I would watch it back. So I have years of just filming my own sparring, just like an hour-long session. I'm watching it back. And so it's cool because I get to look back and see all of my progression over the years. But I would literally just sit in the car after training, or I'd go home, shower, and that would be the rest of my night. I'd watch the sparring. I'd break it down, essentially doing film study on myself. Why does this work? What am I looking at here? And then I also paired that with like coaching myself, essentially. I would watch film breakdowns on YouTube of like the Weasel MMA or Jack Slack, the two that I like to listen to and watch the most. And then I'll be like, okay, so that guy's doing that. I want to try that in training, or I can see that I do this there. So that's a big thing. I think being able to coach yourself comes in really handy because yes, there's a degree of like, this is an interesting concept. At the beginning, coaches can show you a lot, and they will continue to be able to show you a lot. But the guys that do the best are the ones that coach themselves as well. They watch stuff, and they're actively thinking about the process of learning, and they're doing these things themselves. Because when you surround yourself with it, even when you're like visualizing, oh, okay, I want to work on this in sparring. I saw that I did this, so this is what it's going to look like when I actually do it in sparring. And then you picture it, and then it's like you're taking your body through it. There's actually skill acquisition in visualization, which is an interesting thing. Not that you have to sit like for an hour a day and visualize. I'd rather just get in and do the work. But there's an interesting thing where they've had people like visualize learning to play piano and people actually do lessons, and the level of skill acquisition was actually very similar. So I say if you compare that with doing the skill itself, getting in there, especially for sparring, then you're going to go gangbusters. And an extra thing, which I didn't have at the time, but is something I strongly recommend, and that's why I do it now, because I want to help more people progress in their training, is get a coach. So that can be online, that can be in person. They can break down sparring stuff with you and give you specific things, because there are like a billion things that you could probably do at any one time. Oh, you could do this, step slightly this way. But sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So something that will fast track your learning in a good, solid way is getting a coach, because then a coach can be like, oh, you did this? Oh, perfect. So there's this, but then they'll pick, okay, what are the things you need to work on most? Because if you try and work on like 10 different things at once, you're not going to be able to, you'll get 0 of them. But if you pick 1, at most 2 things that, okay, I'm going to develop these things in sparring, just 1 a lot of the time works. What's the most important thing to work on? A coach has the eyes, because they've trained the eyes, like I was saying before, train the perception, and they can just go, hey, just do this next time. Like, try this and keep working on this. Okay, you've done that. Now we'll build upon that. And that way you actually get somewhere with the skills instead of just like overstimulating your brain, because in sparring you can only think so much. You can't be like, I'm going to do this and this and this, because then you're just going to hit in the face. No good. Okay, Xavier. 1, ask partner to slow down. 2, record yourself. 3, actively watch skilled fighter. Yes, but I think watching breakdowns for that third point is really important, because then they're telling you what they're doing and you can consciously register, oh, okay, that's what they're doing. Because a lot of the time, like when I first started watching fights and that, I'd just be like, I don't know what I'm watching here. Like, he hit the guy, he didn't hit the guy. Okay, but then when you watch a breakdown, because they'll either use still frames or slow motion, and you're like, oh, I see. And then you go back and watch the fight or your own footage, and you're like, there it is. And it's like you're training yourself to see that perception. But like I said with the partner, exactly your number 1 point, ask them to slow down. You got to slow it down sometimes and then speed it up again. So yes, so ask the partner to slow down so you can make some reads, but then go full speed again. Is the important thing. So that's both with watching and actually the doing element of it. Is like you slow it down, but then you pick it back up, because otherwise if you're always asking partners to go slow and, oh, hey, don't throw this technique, don't throw that, which is something some people are so weird about, don't throw spinning back kicks, don't throw spinning elbows, don't throw wheel kicks, inspiring, like, well, then you're never going to learn to get used to these things. So you want to see them at speed, but you need a good partner who can throw them with speed and control. Like, you should, if someone's going to throw up a fast head kick, they need to be able to pull that thing back, like, and not knock you out with it or hurt you. Xavier, that's what I like about your content, how you explain how you bait them to come to open a shop. Yeah, exactly. And it's an active process, and it's not like I did it overnight. It was just working. Last spinning back kick got kicked in the balls. Yeah, that's not fun. You got to be careful with that. Raymond Daniels style, like, if you haven't seen that, but that dude, he spinning back kicks a dude in the nuts so hard. It's like a jump spinning back kick. And this guy's got a hard jump spinning back kick in the nuts in, I think it was Bellator. And then he does it again. Literally, the guy takes his recovery time and he does it again straight away. So he got DQ'd for that, like, rightfully so. Anyway, so Pollywood, if you're still here and anyone watching this back, that question of how do you make your first mil, very much the same way that I acquired the skills to be able to spar at the level that I can at and fight. Well, I don't fight anymore, but at the level that I'm at now. So it might sound like I'm not giving much, but honestly, this is something I'm very big on. Business is not the what, it's the who. That's a principle you really need to understand. It's not what strategy to use, because the strategies are all really simple. Oh, you're still here, bro. The strategies are all really simple. Oh, okay, do this and then grow this way. Anything that's valuable can scale. So understanding that value-based skill can scale in that sense. Obviously, you have to not have your time attached to your income tied directly to your time, which is a skill in and of itself. So with that, easy solution or simple solution, value-based pricing would be the biggest thing there, and then being able to scale that. So understanding that it's about skill acquisition and it's about the who. So really taking that time to do the self-development side of things will pay dividends, because it's not so much about, hey, do this strategy. Any of these strategies will work, and people can take, like, even if you look at it objectively and you observe how it works, you can have someone that has like, oh, technically this is the best strategy in the world. They should be able to do it, and they fail using it. It's like, oh, what happened here? This guy said it would work this way and go gangbusters. But then you can also have people who take a bad strategy, so to speak, and then they make it work and they make millions with it. And you're like, oh, that was so simple. Like, how'd they do it? The independent factor is the who behind it, how you apply that strategy and your willingness to embody or embrace and apply a few concepts like skill-based value-based pricing. Like I was saying before, if you need me to explain those more, let me know. I kind of did explain them just then. I gave them a quick summary, but yeah, let me know if you need me to slow down, because sometimes I understand these are terms that like are new and I can say them off the cuff and I know what I mean, but sometimes somebody else might not know. So that's all great. And if you do, like, I don't want to be like oversimplifying it for you, but you know, it's always good to know that. So value-based, not attaching your income to time, which is that value-based pricing. Skill-based, the skill-based side of things. And right, being able to do things like delay gratification, which I think goes hand in hand with having faith, because you got to have faith that your strategy is going to work. And this is part of the who. So of course there's the who, but that sounds very like, okay, what does that mean? Put these things into practice and you'll develop the who that you need to develop in order to do these things. And I'll talk about how I did it specifically as well. Like I did it through coaching. That's been my main thing for I've been a PT since 2019. So for like 5 years, and an online coach for 2.5 years now. Yeah, 2024. About 2.5 years. So it's really just putting these things into practice. So delaying gratification, having faith. You're like, okay, this will work if I see it through. Delay the gratification. You don't need to see results now. So something that helps is to tell yourself, don't measure each day based on what you reap, measure it based on what you sow. So the seeds that you plant are what you measure the day on, the inputs, not the outputs. Don't be like, oh, I didn't get 10K today. I didn't get this. You'd be like, okay, I'm setting the foundation to do this. And this goes really well with like skill-based things, and like I was talking about with sparring, front load the skills. So if you can go like, okay, I'm going to learn these things, front load it. Like something I'm doing right now is I'm posting content 4 times a day. You don't have to do that, but you're going to learn a lot by doing that. And I'm learning a lot. And whilst I get to learn, I'm also seeing a lot of results as well. So it's like the account's starting to blow up a lot more. But that's one of the biggest things is like front load skills. So if you can do more at the start, that's really going to help. Intentionally front loading is going to be big. Don't just do more and be like, oh, sick, doing all these steps. You got to do more and you got to actively improve every step. So if I'm posting 4 times a day, I'm not just going done, flick it out. Yeah, put whatever out there. I'm from post 1 to 2, I'm thinking, what's one improvement that I can make? What's one thing I can do better? From day 1 to day 2, what's one thing that I learned from yesterday that I can apply? But when you do it in such a high frequency, you remove a lot of the emotional weight that we tend to put on things like, oh, man, I DM'd this guy, or like I did a sales call and it didn't go well. And you make it mean something, but when you do a high, like when it's low frequency, when you do a high frequency, you develop the skills and there's no time for you to be like, oh no, I'm a terrible person for not making this happen or doing that. Because you're not. And we just tell ourselves these stories, but you can remove the emotional side of things and just develop the skills, like focus on what you need to focus on. So that's big. Front loading skills. They say, yes, 10,000 hours for mastery, but the biggest skill curve is in the first 20 hours. So, bro, if you can get the first 20 hours of skill acquisition out the way, you're off to the races, bro. And think about that. That's one day you could literally just put in 20 hours straight. Obviously, you might not be able to do that, but if you can dedicate even like a week, you can get most of the skills you need in a week of pure dedication to it. For example, if we're talking like a sales specific way. So the first intro I had into online coaching, and very similar to what I did as a personal trainer, to get clients in the first place. So just in case you don't know, like business strategy is very simple. It's essentially do the specific things for your field that are required to find your ideal client, find like where they are, get them to work with you, so sales, and then service them. Those are really the three main things that you need to do. And if you can do that, you are like unstoppable basically. And then if you do that and just like develop the skills more and more. So in personal training, what that looked like. So I like to give specific examples so that it's like, here's an actual tangible way of applying this thing and not just a concept. Just quickly, who is Miles? I don't know. Do you want to compete in MMA? Now, competition is not really for me. I'm not a competitive guy when it comes to other people. I don't like fighting. I don't like the idea of hurting other people. It's a good question. Like, I love training MMA and like sparring and doing interclubs and like doing good sparring rounds with my partners. But for me, it's more about the art itself and the development of the skills. And I understand that part of that is fighting, but I've had a couple fights, like Muay Thai fights back in 2020, but I was like, fighting's not for me. And I also, before we got married, I promised my wife I wouldn't do it anymore because I don't like putting her through that. But it's only because it's not in my blood. Like, I just don't have that killer instinct that a lot of people have. Xavier, good luck with your content creating, bro. Have a good day. Thank you, Xavier. You too, bro. I'll see you around, hopefully. But yeah, it's just not in my blood. I'm not willing to get in there and hurt other people, nor am I willing to potentially get hurt. And fighting is not a sport that you play. Yeah, you want to protect your brain, exactly. I'm the same. Thank you for saying good points, Miles. But yeah, it's not something that you play because you get guys like Mike Tyson come in and they're killers and like they're willing to literally kill you to get what they want, to just do this. That's just who they are. I'm like, bro, I'm not willing to kill or be killed. So like, maybe I'm too much of a wuss. Like, I would consider for that. I'm just not that guy. I'm not willing to do it. I love training, and like I can fight if I need to. I'd just rather not. Like, if a fight breaks out, yeah, I know I'm capable, but there are plenty of other ways to deal with it. I like to train. I like the art. I like to preserve my brain. So it's good to train. But for me, fighting's not my thing. I love being a good training partner. I love helping people fight and cornering for fights and everything. That's fun. Like, I enjoy that. But the fighting itself, I'm just like, not for me. Anyway, coming back to the milli thing. Yeah, so for what that looks like for coaching is like if you're doing front-loading skill acquisition is like when I first got into the online coaching side of things, one of the things they told us to do was, obviously they gave it, like the guy that I went with had a little course that we could go through, and I did like 100%, 97% of that in the first 3 days, and he was like, no one's ever done that before. But again, I just wanted the skills of doing the thing. He was like, make content like 2-3 times a week, but I was like, I'm going to do every single day. So I did that. And then he was like, message, like cold outreach, 5 people a day, 5 days a week. And I just took that and I was like, I want to get really good at this. So I did 100 a day every single day. And then it's like you get really good when you do things like that. And as a personal trainer, it was like to get clients, to get your face known in the gym. I spent like 10 to 12 hours a day just standing around the gym, saying hi, greeting people. Saying hi to some people, but I don't want to disrupt workouts, but standing at reception saying, hey, how's it going? Oh, what's up? I'm a new trainer here. Oh, yeah, this, that. Just going up and saying hi. Anyway, Miles says, I want to do one MMA fight, then see what I want to do after. Go for it, bro. I think that's, like, you don't know until you know. Like, it's one of those things, business and all that. You don't know until you're on the other side. I thought I was going to do more than 2 fights. I thought I was going to do MMA and Muay Thai, and I was going to have a sick highlight reel, and I was going to like fight for like 10, 20 years as long as I could and just like do it. But then after my first fight, even though I won, I was just like, yeah, I don't know if this is for me, dog. I had my second fight 3 weeks later, so I was like, it's 3 weeks is quite late to back out, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to follow through, and I was like, maybe this feeling will go away, but it didn't. And I was just like, yeah, fighting's not for me. But I didn't know until I got in. I thought I would be a pretty good fighter, but I just lack the thing that mentally those guys have. So that's why I respect it and love watching it so much. I'm just like, awesome, just not me. So yeah, dude, like once you're on the other side, you'll know. And I think it's good. But yeah, and especially at like the amateur level, you're highly unlikely to come across like some crazy killer person, and it's relatively safe as well. Fighting as well at the amateur levels, they do a lot. They have some good refs as well, and like they err on the side of caution. So that's good. Good opportunity. So you can learn that. Yeah. So coming back, front load skill acquisition. That's a big thing. And so our millies have come through coaching, because my wife does coaching as well. So I did online coaching as like a fitness trainer was my start. And then that branched eventually into like people ask me like, oh, hey, dude, you're good at running this business. Like you got your business to 10K cash a month in the first 6 weeks that you were doing it. And you understand what you're talking about whenever we're asking, can you coach me? So then it's like business coaching naturally just started. And then I was like, oh, I'm actually pretty good at this too. Like people are getting results and like actually making it in these fields. So then it branched into business coaching. And then I developed a hybrid where it's like fitness and business coaching. Some people pure business, some people pure fitness, some people a mix of the fitness and the business to basically it's kind of like business consulting so that they can implement the things that they want to. And I specialize in like helping people do what they're passionate about. So if it's like, if they already love the work, it's about being able to do the work better. If they need to know how to run the business, doing something they're passionate about and they don't really have the skills, it's about skill acquisition there as well. Those are my main things. So my wife does that as well. She does like the marketing and business. She finds it hard to put a label on it as well. And I get this because it's like it's developing the person as a whole whilst giving these skills. So she does like business consulting as well, personal branding, marketing, like teaching people how to do all of these things as well as doing it herself. And then we do some of that together. So we have some shared clients that we both coach. And as well as that, so this wasn't the first milli, but this is just what we do now. We do some investing with like crypto and stocks and that. Stocks we're just learning now. Crypto she's done for a while, so she's learning that and she's learning that even better now. And as for like something that we were doing at the time, which is part of the homeless story, was we do like real estate. So we have a little kind of like, not like a, yeah, it's like our little real estate business where we rent vest and we arbitrage. The two biggest things we do right now. So we get properties and we either, if we're renting it and the people are cool with it, we rent out that to other people. So we rent out like the rooms to, you know, also to help out with people needing places to stay as well. So that way we can maximize. Well, that's the main thing. We do like rent vesting. That's rent vesting, and then arbitrage. No, arbitrage is that. Anyway, rent vesting is like we built a house as well. And we rent out the rooms in that. So we have real estate, and I think that does like 100K a year or something like that. Over little over 100K a year right now with our two little properties. So that all contributed to the first mill. And yeah, so it's basically like doing that. And combining that with the value-based approach that so all the things I was talking about before, delaying gratification, value-based skill, and actually, this is a big thing as well that's really important to know, human-first sales and a human-first approach to business. For us, that's been monumental because there have been plenty of opportunity to screw people over or just like choose the cash over the people, but that's just not us. We haven't done that. And it pays dividends in the long term as well. Even in the short term, it pays dividends. So if you can do that, that's how we got our first million. And then like the second and third and fourth, I don't know. But they've all come on really quickly as well. A lot faster because it's like a lot of skills to get that first. And then it's like, you just do that more and you do it better. And then it grows from there. So that was the story of the first mill. Along the way, this is just an interesting tangent because it popped into my mind, but Yana actually got offered a startup job in real estate for like, because she talked to this guy about it and he was like, I actually, instead of mentoring you, I want to give you a job with 500K a year starting salary plus commissions and all of that. Even though she's never worked in real estate before, but she just knew what she was talking about. So she's a genius in that regard. And I never hesitate to say that she's a genius. But she was like, no, I'm not going to do that. Turned that 500K offer down and was like, I'm going to do it myself because I don't want to work for someone else, which is a big thing we've been big on. Is like, well, we just don't want to work for other people in that like boss capacity. Like, because we got a lot of stuff we want to do and our ability to do it ourselves is there. So we can take on that risk, take more of it ourselves, and then we can help other people that way. So yeah, I think that pretty well summarizes how we did the first mill. And then, like I said, a lot of that stuff, the millions that have come after and where it will continue to grow is just through doing more of that, but also better. Not just doing a bunch of volume for the sake of it. It's about when you develop the skills, you actually know where to focus your efforts. And the fun fact is, like, that first meal was literally just like my wife and I. I had one team member at one stage, but I fired them pretty quickly because they couldn't really do what I was asking them to with like messaging and that kind of thing. But that whole time it was just Yana and I, our team of 2, which is very cool. Oh, that was something that contributed as well. Sorry, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. Business startup and like acquisition is something that we do as well. So by way of that, it's like you either come in at the ground level or like the inception of the idea of a business. And because a lot of people, they don't know how to start. They're just like, oh, maybe I can do this. I don't know the actual strategy and I don't have the confidence to do it myself. So then you can kind of come in and be like, we've got the skills, let's do this together. You are the operator, you do the work, like they are the operator. And then we're kind of like more the CEO. So this is why it was kind of hard to define what my wife does, because it's like remote CEO work as well, where we get kind of like what Alex Hormozi does. You get a stake in their business, like normally a slightly higher stake, like majority stake, or ownership of the business. So you have some stakes in it and then you help them scale that and then you pull the scale back. But then it's like they've built this business because of the ability to work with you. Then you take a percentage of that at the start and then ongoing as well. So it's tied directly to like what they make. So that was something we did as well for the first meal, and we still do now. But yeah, it's like a lot of these things. It sounds like we do a lot, but they really all fit together really well. So it's not like we're trying to keep our hands on all these things, because what you do need is singularity of focus. Like we've also gotten to this point where, yeah, it is a fair few things that we do, but we got to this point through singularity of focus. So that's a really important concept to realize that I talk to a lot of guys about. They look at what the successful people, the rich people, the millionaires are doing now, but not how they got there. So they diversify. Like what we do is we've diversified after, but it only came through singularity of focus and being like, what's the one avenue we want to do this through? At most 2. But anything more than that is just a distraction. More often than not, I find most guys do really well with one thing that they devote themselves entirely to. And then you diversify streams of income for the stability down the road. But the cool thing about going skill focused with your skill acquisition focused is the stability and the security that you get come from the skills themselves. They don't come from, I want to, I need to do this side hustle or this side hustle or this thing will make me stable and secure and like make sure I have passive income and all that. Because even passive income is like, it's active at the start and then it becomes more passive later. But you still have to have the skills to be able to make that passive. But anyway, when you go skill focused, then you're bulletproof, essentially. You're stable, you're secure, because no matter what happens with the environment, the economy, the markets, and all that, then you have the skills to be able to do whatever you want. Essentially, like my wife calls it, you have the skill to print money. It really is like, it's just that simple. Like anytime you're like, I want to make more, you just make more. And that's what we do now. But it's a skill. It's not like a lot of people are like, do that from the upfront. And what that leads a lot of guys to do is come in with the wrong mentality, where they're like, this is going to be easy, like it's going to be simple, I'm going to get my passive income up, I'll do this as a side hustle. But no, you've basically just bought yourself another job. And it's like, that will work, any of these side hustles, if you made them your main thing and you just went all in with it. So singularity of focus and going all in on these things is crucial, I find, for most guys. You'll get some exceptions of people that can like diversify and do a few things at once, but even those people tend to do better when they just hone it in. Like for instance, my wife is an exception to that, where she's an exception to a few things because she's a genius, but she does her best work when she applies the structure. But she was doing a few things at once, and she still does. She had her hands in like 5-6 different businesses and then blew it up that way. But most people can't do that. And most people come in with the wrong intentions, because she wasn't like, this will be easy, it'll be passive because I've got so many. She did it out of like, I have an interest in this many, I know I can do it, and I just have to focus the right way. So I have to really give everything the attention it deserves. Most people cannot do that. Like, I hardly know anyone that could have their hands in 5 or 6 different things and then explode those. But an interesting thing, you have to apply this for yourself. If you've got a partner that can do that, great. But the reason she could do that, and like we talk about this a lot, is because I have singularity of focus. So she doesn't have to worry about solidifying all this groundwork and like keeping stable and consistent in that sense, because I'm the one who does this at this level. I have the consistency, I have one singular focus, and I provide that baseline for her to go out and do all these creative things as well. And that suits my personality. Like, I don't want to do what she does. I like to be a part of it and like be interested in it, but it's like that's where a powerful team, like a ruthlessly effective team, a team of killers, that's where that comes in super handy. But you have to have a value that you bring to the team. So for me, it's the singularity of focus through doing one thing. I just work best that way. I can't imagine coming up with like 5 or 6 different ideas and pursuing them all. Like I get confused following 1 or 2 ideas. So I'm a very like guys are very simple. This is like our superpower as well. I'm a pretty simple guy. So like I just have one path that I'm like, I'll just follow this and this makes sense. And obviously now I do a few things with my business. Like I've diversified a little bit, but it's all really, it comes under one thing. But yeah, Yana, my wife, she pursues quite a few things. And she's just done that for a while, but it really came from like, she did start with singularity focus to get the skills with like online coaching and that as well. And then it diversified, but then she didn't have to keep coming back to singularity focus because I had the singularity of focus. So I was that base. And yeah, cool. If you have a partner, if you have a team right now or not, it doesn't matter. You just understand the concepts and apply them to yourself. So if it's one person doing it, do like, I'd strongly recommend, obviously you can do whatever you want, but use that framework that I'm talking about. Singularity of focus for skills at the top, and then diversify as the opportunities come along. But you only get the opportunities by getting the skills in the first place. So it's not like you're going to go, I'm going to start 5 businesses up at once. Most of the guys that I talk to, even guys that are quite smart, we have to eventually go, dude, just pick one. Like what one would you do? And if ever you're unsure, ask yourself, what one right now would I do for the rest of my life for free? And then pursue that. Because that's pursuing, like leading with passion is what I call it. And you don't even have to stick with that one for the rest of your life. But by being able to ask yourself that question, because again, I like to give a tangible approach to it, then you at least know what your next steps are. Oh, okay, close these other 4 down, focus on this one. And then it'll probably evolve into something else as it goes down the line. Or you can go laterally later once you develop the skills. But the only way you develop the skills that you need are by seeing through that one business to that, like the next stage. Because a lot of the time we think, oh, passive income, yeah, perfect. If I have 5 things, then I can get more. But you're starting up 5 things and they hit the first roadblock, like stage 1 in business, and then you bail from that and start up the next one. But the things that you want, the passive income, the ability to thrive, the stability, the security from doing something that you love, and like the good income, and the freedom and flexibility only come from the 10th stage of business. They don't come from the first stage, but a lot of people, like, they causate this idea, or they think that, okay, one business does this much. 5 businesses must do 5 times the amount. No, the maths doesn't work that way. You end up with 5 businesses doing really badly to end up with like doing worse than what one business could do on its own. So if you strip away the other things, go one singularity focus. If you're pretty good, you can do 2, but I'd say 2 is absolute max. Most guys strongly recommend 1. Singularity of focus, get the skills you need, and then the thing is, that's why I talk about this in my content as well. Getting really good at one thing and intentionally applying those principles to other things is just like, that's just how we made. Because like I said, business and life, it's not the what, it's the who. If you've got the who sorted and you can do that through one facet or one aspect of life, one facet, then you can just apply that to anything else. And then you're like, oh, cool, I can do martial arts this way. I can also do business with the exact same principles. I just apply it there, and some of the specifics change, but one of the skills is being able to adapt to those specifics as well. And then you're like, oh, cool, like that wasn't that hard. I can actually do this with real estate. I can do this with business. I already said business. I can do this with my relationships and that as well. So it's like that intentional focus and like that singularity of focus will really pay dividends, but it only comes through actually focusing on stuff in the first place. Yeah, you don't want to have that you don't want to give into shiny object syndrome and think, oh, cool, I'm going to do this and this and this, because any single one of those will work. You just have to do what I call pick and stick. Pick one, stick with it, see it through. Oh, and this will help with skill acquisition as well. be willing to put in an absolute monstrous amount of work. All in is what I'm talking about. So if you got another job, that's fine. If you got a job, and I understand you got to pay bills, then you go all in outside of those job hours. You really have to dedicate yourself. And you got to be willing to go all in every single day for 10 years straight. You'll probably see results faster than that because of that willingness, but that's the framework the mindset you have to come into it with, or that I recommend. And our story is like, we didn't get jobs. Like, we had plenty of opportunities to get different jobs. Like I talked about the 500K a year starting salary Yana got offered. There were opportunities or times when Yana was like, oh, times are tough. Should one of us get a job? It was very much like, no, let's double down on what we're doing now, because we can get all those skills and the time that it would take anyway, and effort that it would take to go and get a job and actually work the job. We could just put that time in, because it takes like 2 to 4 weeks to do that anyway. You could put that time into this, and then we'll develop those things more anyway. So we did that. She trusted me, and she's also really good with that as well. And through that, we've been able to grow and grow and grow in these things. But we didn't have jobs along the way. We literally just went all in for it. I had little things, but they weren't my main thing. Especially when we went online, it was like we dropped everything else and just went online. And we've just been all in on it, and we know that we can always go get jobs. But it's just through that being all in, that focus, because for us, it's also a test of faith. It's like putting your money where your mouth is. If God calls you for something and says, yes, you can do this pathway's here, you're not really acting in faith if you second guess that and go get a job. In my opinion, like for us, we're just like, God very clearly called us to do this and was like, yeah, you can do this. Millions are in your future. And it's not like the prosperity gospel kind of thing where it's like, oh, we're going to do this so we get the millions. We're just like, okay, this is the path that you put before us. Let's do it. Like, it just makes logical sense. And as a result, we have done these things, and that's what I call absolute faith, because faith without works is dead, says in the Bible, and vice versa as well. If God's like, yeah, this is the path, this is the way, like you prayed for wisdom and for knowledge and for guidance, take it. Take it, man. Like, even if you're not sure about, oh, this seems like a bit of a rocky road, if God's like, yeah, this is the thing, go for it. And this, I'll wrap it up with this. This is one of the, honestly, like one of the greatest skills that I think that I have, and is one of my strengths as a leader, is I can rely on God pretty much completely. Like, it's something that I think a lot of guys, and I'm not meaning to call anyone out or say this in a mean way, but a lot of guys will pray for wisdom and to be shown what to do. They receive that wisdom and they know that that's from God, but then they won't do it. And then they say, oh, wow, you're the lucky one. You were chosen by God. I was like, but even if you just look at our actions, I followed the path when you didn't. We followed the path when you refused to because it got too hard or it got too scary. We went through the same situations, but the only difference was the action, the faith, the willingness to do what God called us to do. So when you look at it that way, it's like what I do is, and again, because I like to give it in a tangible way. This is more powerful than any strategy or anything that any mentor can say to you. And I tell all of my guys this. Open your heart fully to and pray to receive wisdom the right way at the right time. So God's timing, not yours. Trust that to Him. Trust the outcomes to God, and you just do the inputs. Then He'll inform you what inputs to do at the right time. You might want to know now, but God might be like, it's not your time to know now. So you pray about it, and then you have peace. You take action in that time. You still keep doing stuff. And pretty quickly, I find, God will show you the thing to do. And for me, it comes in the form of like wisdom. I call it wisdom. Like when my stuff that I know, that's knowledge. But pure wisdom comes from God, because He knows exactly what to do more than I could know. So I surrender myself to that. And a lot of times when Yana's like, oh, what should we do? That's what I do. I pray, and then God shows me, here's what you do. And it's like, it's not like it's from my brain. It's like it's inside here, which is the weird thing, because obviously it's like a thought, but it's like I can feel it. You just know that this is the right thing. Like God just showed you, here's the way. And you just have this knowledge, this intrinsic knowledge, and you know that it's not just from you. Because obviously, logically, we could come up with, oh, I'll do this, I'll follow this strategy, I'll do this. But when God shows you, here you go, like you ask, you shall receive, ask and you shall receive. And then obviously at the start of James, he talks about, the book of James talks about how like any one of you who lacks knowledge, ask for it. I'm paraphrasing here, but do it and have no second guesses. Like, just have complete, absolute faith in that wisdom that's given to you. Otherwise, you're like just a wave blowing about, being tossed around in the ocean. You are like second guessing all the time, and it's like, what was the point of praying in the first place, or like trusting it to God? So it's like the praying, but the action that comes with it is the next thing. And that's, honestly, it sounds silly, but that's how I make a lot of my best business decisions. The homeless thing, that was God being like, bro, the time is now. Do, 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 do. And I was like, oh, all right, let's go. And the crazy thing is my family, my little family, brother-in-law, 2 dogs. Obviously, the dogs just trust me. Yana, they were just like, all right, where are we going? Looking back now, I've been talking about this a fair bit recently. I'm like, dude, that's a crazy thing for people to trust you to lead them through that situation. But yeah, every time it's been something like that. Yana's like, should we get a job? Pray about it? Nah, that's not the go. That's not the right move. Okay, I trust you. Bub, bub, bub. And it works. The scary thing is you don't know for sure that it's going to work, but you kind of know for sure that it's going to work at the time. So it really is that faith. So ask, you receive, but then take action in accordance with it. It's a big thing a lot of people don't do. Even in the context of like business mentorship or coaching, sometimes you'll tell someone something and they're like, cool, and then they won't do it. And say, well, what was the point of all of this? If you're not going to take action, it's not worth it. Yeah, so that is the biggest thing I will close on, because honestly, I tell this to everyone. That's better than anything I can say to you. I might have a specific strategy. I pray to say the right things in the right way that lead people closer to God, and like have the right strategies and do the right thing. I open myself up to be a vessel in that sense. But if you can go directly to God, bro, don't follow me, follow God. That's the biggest thing, because He's going to know for you personally even better. He's going to know all the ins and outs of the situation. He's got all the context. I don't have all the context. No matter how much we ask, I won't know every single thing that's happened in your life. So there might be something that I say slightly wrong. But God never gets that stuff wrong, bro. It's a beautiful thing, beleza. So it's just a fantastic and beautiful blessing that we're given to be able to rely on God at every step of the way. If things are great, rely on Him more. If things are not great, rely on Him even more. He's put you there for a reason. Everything in between, rely on Him even more. So that's what I'll close out with. That was the homeless to millionaire story. I'm sure I'm going to tell it again, because there's always something I can reiterate on or expand on. And also some of the key things that were asked in relation to this was how do we make our first million? That, basically. All of that I just spoke about for the last hour. Oh, it's been an hour. So, yeah, very fun times. I'll leave you with that. Catch you guys on the flippity flip. Keep it all gravy, baby. Bye. Me. Baby Groot. Baby Groot says bye.